The trap Camilla built. Queen Camilla spent nearly 2 decades carefully constructing her place inside the British royal family. She managed the press with precision, shaped public perception in her favor, installed her own family members into well-paid royal positions, and gradually transformed herself from the most hated woman in Britain into a queen. On the surface, it looked like the perfect ending to a complicated and controversial story. But there was one person who watched every single move she made. One person who stored every detail, every slight, every calculated maneuver somewhere deep and private. And that person now owns the estate, the homes, the payroll, and, when the time comes, the power to decide exactly where Camilla lives after Charles is gone. That person is Prince William, and he has already begun making his moves. The billion-dollar transfer that changed everything. On September 8th, 2022, Queen Elizabeth II passed away at Balmoral Castle in Scotland. The world came to a standstill. Tributes poured in from every corner of the globe. News channels ran continuous coverage for days. Millions of people lined the streets to pay their respects. And while all of that was unfolding in public, something else happened quietly in the background, something that barely made a single headline. The moment Charles became king, William became the Duke of Cornwall. Not a day later, not after any formal ceremony. The instant his father's reign began, the transfer happened automatically by law. And what passed into William's hands that afternoon was something almost impossible to fully appreciate. The Duchy of Cornwall is one of the oldest and most valuable private estates in Britain, worth approximately $1.2 billion. It spans 135,000 acres across 23 counties in England and Wales. It includes the Isles of Scilly off the Cornish coast, half of Dartmoor and Devon, historic castles, farms, holiday cottages, tenant properties, and decades of carefully managed financial investments. The estate was originally created in 1337 for one specific purpose: to ensure the heir to the throne always had an independent source of income, completely separate from whoever occupied the throne at the time. That independence was the entire point. The heir could never be financially pressured or controlled by the monarch. By 2025, William was drawing roughly $30 million a year from this estate. He pays tax on it voluntarily, even though the law does not require him to. But here is the part of the story that almost everyone missed. This was the very same estate that had funded Charles's household for decades while he was still heir to the throne. The income from this estate had paid for Charles's properties, his lifestyle, and his projects through all those years, including the years he was secretly conducting an affair with Camilla that ultimately destroyed his marriage to Diana. The money that flowed through this estate ran alongside one of the most painful private chapters in modern royal history. William knew all of that. He had grown up living inside it, and now he owned the estate. Every property, every tenant, every contract, and every name on the payroll, including one name that had been sitting there for nearly 20 years, Annabel Elliot, Queen Camilla's younger sister. What Camilla built, while everyone was watching something else. Annabel had been hired in 2005 to serve as an interior designer for properties across the duchy. She designed holiday cottages on the Isles of Scilly, worked on historic castles, and transformed neglected buildings into elegant guest spaces used for weddings and private events. By 2014, she had been named one of the 5 most influential female interior designers in the United Kingdom. Her work was genuinely well regarded, but the way she got the contract in the first place tells a different story entirely. She did not apply for it. There was no competitive process, no open application, no review panel. She got the job because her sister married a man who owned the estate. That was the beginning and the end of the explanation. For 20 years, the arrangement ran without disruption, because for 20 years, Charles was the one in charge. Then William took over. Most people think of Camilla's rise as a straightforward love story. Charles loved her, Diana was in the way, and eventually Charles got what he wanted. That version leaves out almost everything that actually happened. Before Charles married Camilla in April 2005, William and Harry approached their father privately with a specific request. They told him they supported him and were willing to welcome Camilla into the family. But they asked him not to marry her, just be together. They said the reason was simple: a wedding would drag Diana's name through every newspaper in the world all over again. It would force the public to compare their mother directly to the woman who had been her husband's mistress for most of their marriage. Neither son wanted that for her memory. Charles listened to them. Then he married Camilla anyway. To manage the public reaction, Buckingham Palace made a formal promise. When Charles eventually became king, Camilla would be known as Princess Consort, not Queen. William accepted this, attended the wedding, and kept his feelings somewhere private where no one could see them. Then, in February 2022, Queen Elizabeth released a statement marking her 70 years on the throne. Buried inside that message was a quiet but significant decision. She expressed her sincere wish that Camilla be known as Queen Consort when the time came. The public received it as a warm gesture of acceptance. People close to the Queen described it very differently. They said she was not blessing Camilla so much as managing a situation she would not be alive to control. The Queen was dying, and she knew it. Then came the coronation in May 2023. The word consort quietly disappeared. Camilla was no longer Queen Consort. She was simply Queen, the exact title William and Harry had once specifically asked their father never to allow. But the title was only part of what Camilla built. The more consequential work happened behind closed doors. According to multiple royal biographers, she would go to Charles privately and offer her version of events involving William and Harry when no one else was present. She shaped what Charles believed about his own sons, slowly, quietly, and from the inside, when she needed favorable coverage in the press. Stories appeared. When she needed someone else to look bad, those stories appeared too. Her team was reportedly behind planting a false story that Meghan had made Kate cry before the 2018 royal wedding. That story spread everywhere and caused real damage within the family. Nearly everyone inside the palace knew it was not true. When William and Harry went to their father to tell him what his communications team was doing, Charles shouted at William and told him he was being paranoid. Camilla had built a system where every door William tried to open led back to her. She had influence over the press, the ear of the king, and family members positioned across the royal structure. William was not paranoid. He was paying close attention, and he was quietly storing every single detail away, waiting for the moment when he had enough power to respond. The removal that sent a message louder than any speech. That moment arrived when he inherited the Duchy of Cornwall, and the first person who felt it was Annabel Elliot. William did not call a press conference. He did not release a statement. He said nothing publicly about what he was doing. He simply waited for the Duchy of Cornwall to publish its routine annual financial accounts, a dry document that almost no one outside royal financial circles ever reads. But this time, one name was missing. Annabel Elliot was gone from the payroll. 20 years of royal employment ended without a single public word. A royal expert described the situation carefully, using the kind of language people deploy when they are trying not to say something too directly. She noted that William had removed Annabel from the payroll since becoming Duke of Cornwall, and that this had caused some ripples. An official source stated the decision was no reflection on Annabel's work. Everyone inside the royal world understood that was a polite way of saying the opposite. A separate royal source was considerably more direct. They said William wanted to cut away the royal hangers-on and reduce the lavish spending his father had built up while managing the estate. That phrase, cut away the hangers-on, tells you exactly what William thought of the arrangement Charles had quietly constructed for Camilla's family. The financial figures involved were actually modest against the scale of $1 billion estate. Annabel had been earning somewhere between £20,000 and £80,000 per year, depending on the scope of work, against an estate worth $1.2 billion. Those numbers are almost irrelevant. The money was never the point. The message was, while Annabel's name disappeared from the payroll, new names appeared. William brought in personal friends and godparents to his children, George and Louis, people he had chosen himself, people with no connection to Camilla whatsoever. Out went Camilla's family. In came William's people. But the duchy was only one front in this quiet conflict. Every year, the royal family gathers at Sandringham for Christmas, one of the monarchy's most important traditions. On one occasion, Camilla invited her son Tom Parker Bowles, her child from her first marriage, to join the family Christmas there. Reports emerged that William made his position clear. He would not attend the main Christmas lunch if Tom was present. Camilla invited Tom anyway. Tom came. William did not attend the main gathering. He spent Christmas with Kate and their children at their own home on the Sandringham estate instead. Camilla had pushed the future King of England out of a family Christmas at an estate he will one day own, simply by refusing to back down. Then, in September 2025, during Donald Trump's state visit to Windsor Castle, Kate fell into easy, natural conversation with Melania Trump. The two women were connecting warmly. Then Camilla stepped in from the side and made a short, firm motion toward Kate. Body language experts who watched the video described it as pulling rank, almost shooing the future queen away, in public, in front of world leaders. The clip spread across every platform within hours. The homes Camilla calls hers, and the man who actually owns them. From the outside, Camilla's position looks completely secure. She lives between Buckingham Palace, Clarence House, Sandringham, and Balmoral. She holds the title Her Majesty the Queen. She is patron of more than 90 charities. She has the full protection of her husband. Her position appears permanent and untouchable. But every single thing she has is tied to one man, and that man has cancer. Here is the detail most people do not know, and it may be the most important thing in this entire story. Sandringham House in Norfolk and Balmoral Castle in Scotland are not government buildings. They are not crown properties managed by any institution. They are privately owned, the same way a family home is privately owned. Queen Elizabeth inherited both from her father. When Elizabeth died in 2022, they passed directly to Charles. When Charles dies, they pass directly to William. Balmoral is worth around $140 million. Sandringham is worth around $65 million. Together, that is over $200 million in private property that Camilla currently walks through, sleeps in, and calls home. None of it belongs to her, not in any legal document anywhere in the world. When Charles dies, whether Camilla can continue living in these homes will depend entirely on what William decides to allow. There is no legal protection guaranteeing her access. She will be a guest if William extends that courtesy. And based on everything already covered, that courtesy is far from guaranteed. There is one more detail that makes her situation even more exposed. She used to own a private home of her own, a property in Wiltshire called Ray Mill House, which had been hers long before she married Charles. She used to describe its garden as the best therapy in the world. It was her retreat, her private space, the one place where she could simply be herself. She sold it. She sold the only home that was truly and completely hers. The consequence of that decision is now impossible to undo. When Charles dies, Camilla will have no private property of her own anywhere in the world. She will live wherever William decides she can live, and Balmoral, the estate where she will need William's generosity most, is also the place where a 15-year-old William was woken before dawn by his father to be told his mother had died. He and Harry walked those grounds that morning as two boys trying to survive something no child should have to survive. The detail sitting beneath all of this is that when Charles received the news from Paris that night, the first person he called was Camilla. She was the first to know about Diana's death. Before the Queen, before his sons, before anyone else. What happens next, and why Camilla has no way out? King Charles III has been fighting cancer. During this period, he has had quiet, personal conversations with William about what comes after. Multiple sources have described the tone of those conversations as urgent. The message from Charles to his son has been clear. Leave Camilla alone, protect her, do not push her out. A dying king spending what may be his final years appealing to the one person who has the power to take everything away. That single detail tells you more about where this is heading than almost anything else. William's response was not given in words. It was given in a payroll report. It was given in a Christmas he did not attend. It was given in the people he hired to replace those Camilla had placed inside his estate. When Charles dies, the transfer of power is automatic. William becomes king. Kate becomes queen. Camilla loses the title of queen entirely. It passes to Kate. Camilla would likely become Queen Dowager, the widow of a king. It is not a shameful title, but it is a significant step back that the entire world will notice, and there is nothing Camilla can do to prevent it. Her title is not protected by birth. She is royal by marriage only. What she is called after Charles is gone, where she lives, and how she is treated will be entirely up to William. He watched Charles strip Diana of her royal title after their divorce. He was a teenager when that happened. He knows exactly how the process works. And he now holds the exact same power over Camilla that Charles once held over Diana. Camilla built her position brilliantly. She managed the press. She influenced the king. She placed her family in royal roles. She outlasted nearly everyone who stood against her. She got the title she was told she would never have. She transformed herself from the most hated woman in Britain into a queen, but she did all of it inside a system she does not own. She built her empire in someone else's house. And that someone else is the person who watched her build it from the time he was a child. She sold the only home that was truly hers. She placed her family inside an estate that now belongs to William. She pushed him out of family Christmas at a house he will one day own. She allowed her team to dismiss his wife in public in front of world leaders. And she did all of it while relying entirely on protection of a man with cancer. William has not made a single dramatic public move. He has given no interviews, released no statements. He has simply, very quietly, started making decisions. And each decision has sent a message that everyone inside the royal family has understood perfectly. The question is not whether William is going to act. The question is how far he is willing to go. Camilla spent 20 years carefully engineering her rise to the top of the most powerful family in Britain, only to find herself entirely dependent on the goodwill of the one person who watched every move she made and never forgot any of it. Did she build a kingdom, or did she build a trap